everybody, and thank you all for coming. This is a series that we're doing for the Custer County Wellness Council. It's a relatively new nonprofit organization we have in the community that we're building up. Today is also part of our membership drive, so we're really looking for members who can help to kind of build out some of the projects that we have. Some of the projects that we're working on currently are a retreat at Pines Ranch. It's going to be a 2-night retreat that has a lot of wellness activities and features and education there. We also do these twice a month education series on various topics throughout the year. And we're also going to be kind of taking hold of the annual health and wellness fair that used to be here where you get your blood draws and everything done, but kind of amp it to be more wellness oriented as well as health oriented. So everybody kind of knows the resources that we have in this community for wellness and for health. My name's Ashley Melchiorre. I'm the vice president of the council, and I'm really passionate about wellness. I own Amelioration Health in town, and I do integrative medicine. And today I'm just going to be talking a little bit about the tummy, because the tummy is, I do a lot of root cause medicine, finding where symptoms, disease, and disability kind of stem from, and a lot of it goes back to the gut. So it's a really important main character in our system. So I just want to give it the attention that it needs. And this is very light, but try to go into the topics a little bit more detail, just talking about it, and then feel free to interject with questions that you may have or comments that you may have, and we'll get started. And if anybody is interested in membership or supporting the council, we'll take donations and sponsors as well. And you can talk to Mary about that. This is a little bit of what we're going to be talking about, kind of the topics for today. So your internal ecosystem. Our gut is the largest organ of our body, right? The skin is a huge organ. Our gut is a bigger organ. So it starts in your mouth and it goes all the way through to the exit. So that's when I talk about your gut. That's more than just your tummy. It's like the whole system. We're going to talk about the importance of digestion and absorption, intestinal permeability. Dysbiosis is a word that means imbalanced gut bacteria. And then opportunistic infections, the connection between your gut and your brain, and then how it can also affect your endocrine system. Okay, so my patients get this visual when they come in through how I try to describe it. But I like to think about all of us having a bucket's worth of space of allowable inflammation in our bodies. And that's the food that you eat, whether it's good food, bad food, or food sensitivities. That's the toxins that we breathe in. That's the chemicals that we're exposed to with our cleaning supplies and our hygiene products and whatever. All of these things fill our bucket. And it's when your bucket overflows that you start having symptoms. You start getting either fatigue or brain fog or joint pain or skin rashes or hair loss or migraines. So all of these symptoms that people have and just kind of deal with, it's like not bad enough to see the doctor about. Those are symptoms that your bucket's overflowing. And so when you don't handle these symptoms over years, or depending on how bad they are and what's causing it, right, they lead to disease, like autoimmune conditions, like heart conditions, like metabolic disorders, like neurodegenerative disorders, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. And then those things eventually lead to disability. And so a little bit of my background is before I started in functional and integrative medicine, I was working in Colorado Springs visiting assisted livings, and I was the on-call provider. So I would go to memory cares and I would take care of people that lived in memory care. And I think everybody in this room agrees that they never want to live in a memory care, as did the people living in memory care. So it was really a passion of mine to find how did this happen, because I was taking care of rocket scientists and renowned surgeons and doctors that didn't know their name and how to use a fork and how to use the bathroom anymore. And so for such brilliant people to completely lose their capacity really kind of founded my drive for this preventative and root cause workup. So I learned a lot about how the gut can have a big impact on that. And there's, again, a lot of factors of things that fill the bucket, but today we'll just talk a little bit on the tummy. Excuse me. Okay, so the GI tract is at the tube, right, that connects your mouth to the exit, but it is the largest interface with the external environment that we have. So think about everything that you put in your mouth on a daily basis, weekly basis, annual basis. And essentially, the microbiome of the gut is kind of like the soil or the fertilizer, so to speak. So everything thrives when the soil is healthy. So my goal is to figure out what parts of the soil are disrupted and then kind of work on healing it with lifestyle, nutrition, and supplements. And so if the soil's not good, the plants aren't going to thrive, and that's your organ systems. I will also note here that you have more bacteria in your gut than you have cells of your human body. So we are just a vessel for these little bacteria because there are more of them than there are of us. Your gut and your brain are highly connected. So they're just like basically working on one solid track. And that's you have over 100 million neurons within your gut. And neurons are also what build your brain. So they communicate like constantly, all the time. Your immune system is also highly related to your gut health. So about 70 to 80% of your immune response resides in the lymphoid tissue in the stomach and within that bacteria. They help to build your strength and strengthen your immune system. And so you probably have all taken antibiotics at some point in your life, and then you're more compromised and you're more susceptible to infection after taking antibiotics because it kills off all the good bacteria that protect you. The microbiome, again, that's another word for the bacteria in your gut, also can influence your whole metabolism. So how you're extracting calories of the food that you're eating, how reactive you are to your sugars that you're eating, and how your body's able to manage it, and cholesterol for the same thing. And so, a lot of what I do for people who have high cholesterol or insulin resistance, which is type 2 diabetes, is we look at the gut. How are you digesting and absorbing? Because if that's messed up, then of course you're not going to be doing it the right way. But people don't really think about that. All right, a little bit on digestive enzymes. Excuse me. Digestive enzymes, there's kind of twofold of digestion and absorption. So I like to think of your digestive enzymes as that bigger piece to digestion and absorption. You've got your tummy that's smashing the food that you're eating, and then these are helping to break down your macromolecules. So your macromolecules are your fats, your proteins, and your carbohydrates. Those are the bigger molecules. Your micro nutrients are things like your vitamins and minerals and all the little smaller things that, that aren't part of the fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So your pancreas, when you think about eating food, or when you start eating food and smelling food, getting excited about food and salivating a little bit, your pancreas is also starting to pump out these enzymes. So even just thinking about food and we'll get this going. And so having enough enzymes to break down the food is kind of like step one. You also use bile that's produced by the liver. It's stored in the gallbladder. So if you don't have a gallbladder, there's a little bit of consideration we need to take. You're not storing it, but you just got to be more mindful about how you're introducing your fats. But these are emulsifying the fats to kind of like make them absorbable, and you should absorb some and you should eliminate some. And so if you're not absorbing and eliminating appropriately, it can lead to things like more cholesterol in your bloodstream. So without these bigger macromolecules, you can't break things down. And a lot of times it's just like watery diarrhea. You'll just poop it all out because you're not breaking it down, you're not absorbing it. And so if you're not doing this basic thing, you're not fueling everything in your body. So if you think about, very plain and simple, when you put gas in the tank, you feed every system that your body does. It's fueling your heart, it's fueling your lungs, it's fueling your immune system, it's fueling everything. Everything that you do gets its energy from the gut. So again, without a functioning gut, then you're not feeding your machine. You don't have any gas to operate. So you just, think about malnourished people. They just kind of wither away and they don't have any energy or anything to do what they need, the power to do what they need to do. including muscles and your brain activity and repair. Any questions with digestion and absorption? Great. So intestinal permeability is another hot topic. Has anybody in here heard of leaky gut? Yeah. Leaky gut is can come in a lot of different ways, but essentially your intestinal barrier should have really tight junctions. And I use the example of like this. So as you digest and absorb on the inside, you can break down the macromolecules, and only the macromolecules that are broken down and the micromolecules can squeeze through these really, really tight junctions, and that's how you absorb the things that you need to absorb for the most part. And so when you have inflammation within these cells, think about when you're holding your eyes too tight under the water, you end up getting more water in your eyes. They get inflamed and they swell up a little bit. So bigger things can leak out and get absorbed into the body and leave the gut that aren't supposed to be leaving the gut. So you can have a lot of symptoms from that, but again, poor absorption from that. It also could change the pH balance and influence the gut bacteria, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And it can cause your body to have bigger systemic reactions. If you think about a virus that comes in, maybe you eat something and it comes in through the gut and squeezes through and gets absorbed, your immune system is going to attack it. Bigger food molecules that your body doesn't recognize, it's going to treat it very similarly and it's going to attack it. And so a lot of people can build up food sensitivities just from having too much inflammation in their gut, because you eat something, you absorb it, but you're absorbing the parts that are too big and your body's actually recognizing it as a foreign invader and it will attack it. Some people will get hives, a lot of people get diarrhea, but it can also present with fatigue and joint pain or headache and kind of things you don't really pin on tummy. So they can go on for a long time because you don't realize that they're happening. Things that cause inflammation are food. That's one of the biggest things that can cause inflammation. Gluten specifically is so inflammatory. So to a degree, everybody gets inflammation in their gut from gluten. Chronic stress can do that. Other food triggers, I do a really big food sensitivity test. People react to a lot of different things. And different medications, like if you take a lot of ibuprofen or if you're taking things for joint pain, that can degrade the lining and cause more inflammation over time. The significance, again, with your body learning to attack things that it shouldn't attack, you can also get toxins from specific bacteria. So there's gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria, and gram-negative bacteria carry things called lipopolysaccharides, which are pro-inflammatory, and your body can react negatively to them. And so these actually, having that inflammation allows these lipopolysaccharides to invade your system, and then it kind of like triggers your immune system to stay activated. So it's like, hey, look at me, infection, and then other things can come right in because it's occupied over here looking at something different. This LPS, which is the lipopolysaccharides, is a huge metabolic toxin, and so over time, and I'm not talking just like you have a tummy bug once and you get this trigger and it's going to affect you forever, but this is like those like leaky faucets that are filling your bucket really slowly on a regular basis that you might not really catch because you don't have immediate tummy problems. And so it can cause things like insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance, when it gets bad enough, is type 2 diabetes. That's kind of the metabolic driver for that. All right, a little bit on dysbiosis and opportunistic infections. So diversity of the gut is like the best thing that will protect you in general. So we have, again, just trillions amount of bacteria. We have lots of different types of bacteria and different families of bacteria. And the healthiest tummy is when we have just a really diverse amount. And there's good bacteria we want that are kind of like the police chief. Are any of you familiar with the probiotic lactobacillus specifically? Lactobacillus is one of the most common gut bacteria, and there's a ton of different subspecies and families of Lactobacillus, but you get it in fermented foods like sourdough bread or in sauerkraut or kombucha. So different things that are fermented that Lactobacillus eats the sugar and creates more Lactobacillus yogurt. So Lactobacillus in general is a really important key player because he helps maintain that acid-base balance that allows everybody else to be in check. So I call him the police chief. But if you don't have enough of this Lactobacillus, for example, E. coli could kind of come. E. coli is a totally normal gut bacteria, but when it overgrows and becomes opportunistic, it becomes pathogenic, which can cause a lot of different gut symptoms at that point. Again, they always leave the gut. So dysbiosis just means that you're imbalanced. Too many bad versus too few of the good. And I don't like the bad is kind of not a good term, but opportunistic. So there's lots of stuff that's in us normally all the time, but they become bad when they become a little bit overgrown. But this is linked, just dysbiosis alone is linked to PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, mood imbalances, obesity-related inflammation, irritable bowel syndrome, and inflammatory bowel disease, type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, neurodegenerative diseases, again, like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, autoimmune conditions, skin conditions, asthma. I mean, the list goes on and on of what these guys can be linked in. Candida is a really popular thing to experience. So Candida is a type of yeast, and we have Candida in different yeast in our gut, and they're normal. They're part of the normal flora of our gut, but there are things that can cause Candida to overgrow. And so it's that imbalance of the good bacteria gets suppressed, maybe with an antibiotic, or maybe too much sugar, or too much, chemicals that you're eating and processed foods can cause that shift of the acid and base to be more acidic, for example, and then it can allow Candida to overgrow. And Candida loves sugar, so especially in America, we see lots of Candida issues. And Candida can release a neurotoxin that contributes to things like brain fog, and it can also mimic estrogen and cause endocrine system disruptions. But again, a lot of people who have Candida overgrowth in their tummy don't necessarily have a super bad tummy. They're like, well, I poop every day and it looks kind of normal, and I don't have any tummy pain, but I have brain fog. I have this rash that won't go away. I have muscle aches and joint pains. It can kind of present so differently. So again, you don't really think that. And in the meantime, you're eating what you eat, and then you're just helping that Candida thrive. Pushing it down, if you have Candida, you can treat it with antimicrobials or specific treatments, but nutrition is a really big piece to that puzzle. Basically, cut down the sugar. Parasites are also really trendy right now. So there's people online that say everybody has a parasite no matter what. I don't know about that. We can do an extensive parasite checking for liver flukes, parasites, protozoa, all sorts of creepy crawlies in your tummy. And I will tell you, I see it more in Westcliff than I did in Colorado Springs. I think because we have more animals and more people gardening, and that's good in general, but not everybody has a parasite. And parasites, again, they go back to keeping that immune system activated. So Th2 dominance is T cell helper type 2. And that's basically like the look at me, I'm activated over here, and other opportunistic things can just kind of come in through the back door. And because your immune system is on high alert for this, it can't be on high alert for circulating cancer cells or for other bacteria that can come in and make you sick, or other viruses that can come in and make you sick. So it can also impact more food sensitivities and autoimmune flares. So if you do have parasites, we can find them and get rid of them, but not everybody has them. Okay. Any questions on that, guys? Great. The neurological connection. So the gut-brain axes. This is what I really love. I love it all. But I think it's so fascinating how our gut and our brain just communicate basically as one big unit. So a lot of that communication is through the vagus nerve and through circulating hormones throughout your body. Neurotransmitter synthesis, I think, is really cool because a lot of people that struggle with depression either don't have enough serotonin or they're not using it appropriately. And it's remarkable that 90 to 95% of your serotonin is actually created by your gut bacteria. And so you don't have a happy tummy, you don't have a happy brain, and about 50% of the dopamine are produced in the gut too. So again, if you're just, a lot of people use food as a dopamine source, so you get that initial surge of dopamine after eating something sweet or sugary or comfort food or something like that. You get that little dopamine rush, but you're actually draining yourself of more dopamine production by feeding that gut bacteria unhealthy things. So then you need to eat more of those Cheetos to make you happier, because the same amount of Cheetos just didn't cut it. So you got to eat more. Our brains are really funny at that. But a lot of how happy you are is regulated by how happy your tummy is and how happy those bacteria are. And then the neuroinflammation, so that's brain inflammation. That imbalance of bacteria triggers microglial activation of the brain, and it is linked to the pathogenesis of Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's, which again is one of my main drivers. Food sensitivities can contribute to plaque buildup in the brain, and toxins that you're exposed to that you don't eliminate can lead to plaque buildup in the brain. So again, the gut is just kind of the piece to the puzzle. And if one of your main detox methods is through poop. You poop, you pee, you sweat it out, you breathe it out. And so if you're not digesting and absorbing and you have inflammation, then you're not going to be getting rid of toxins. So it's kind of like a twofold effect that you end up causing more damage because you're not appropriately detoxing as well. And we detox naturally with the foods that we eat. Just a little pro tip for everybody. If you eat the colors of the rainbow in fruits and vegetables, then you're going to get everything that you need to detox all of your major organ systems. The vagus nerve is also linked to, has anybody heard of POTS? Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. It's where you change your position and your heart rate races so high you feel, the term for it is you feel impending doom. It's really terrible, but it's also linked to your gut. Or if you, have a really bad diarrhea and you pass out, that's through the vagus nerve, kind of tanking your blood pressure. The estrogen disruption. So I do, in my root cause workup, I do a lot of care for people who have had hormone-related cancers. And every time that we've done the gut test for hormone-related cancers, we can find that there's problems with your hormone regulation. Most of your hormones are regulated by the gut. They're created by your sex organs and your adrenal glands, and your thyroid creates hormones too, but the gut regulates a lot of that. And a lot of it is based off of how well you can eliminate it. So you can create it, but can you get rid of it to keep that balance? And so if you have imbalanced microbiome, a lot of times it releases extra of this enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which that's like a flag to recycle things. And it's a really good estrogen recycler. So instead of eliminating estrogen out in your stool, you actually build up more and more estrogen. And so when your body's got too much estrogen, one, you're not a very nice person. But two, you start pushing it down those unhealthy pathways that can lead to other issues in your body. So a healthy amount of beta-glucuronidase will allow some to recycle, but it will allow most of it to get pushed out of your body. And that is also true with different types of toxins as well. So if you're imbalanced in your gut microbiome and you have high beta-glucuronidase, you're not going to excrete those day-to-day, the parabens in your shampoo that get absorbed, and the, chemicals in the soda that you drink, and all of those things, instead of like your body allowing those to pass through, it's like, oh, I'm going to flag that and hold on to it. Might want to keep it for later. And then you end up storing a lot of those things, including estrogen in your fat cells. And your fat cells, one fat cell, a teeny tiny little fat cell, can get as big as a basketball. So you can store a lot of stuff in your fat cells. And a lot of this is when you flag it to recycle it instead of eliminate it. It's like, all right, I'm going to store you, my fat cells. And even if you're skinny, you still have fat cells. So you can still be pretty toxic. But when you have estrogen dominance, I think everybody in this room knows an estrogen dominant person. It has a lot of mood shifts, of course, but it can contribute to endometriosis, which is abnormal, like uterine growth outside of the uterus, fibroids, and hormone-driven cancers. So this one's a really important one. You should be flagging things for a little bit to keep, but mostly to eliminate. And so, all in all, the gut is really a common denominator in a lot of symptoms and a lot of chronic diseases. And so when you know that your gut is operating well, you've given your body the best chance at wellness. You want to feed it the right things, and I think Michelle and Lindsay are going to talk about the food to eat to keep a healthy tummy for all of these areas next time that they do their meeting. But the basics is, knowing what foods might cause inflammation, and with the food that could cause inflammation, it can cause inflammation that presents a symptom within 72 hours of eating it. So it could be really hard to kind of pin down. If something gives you a tummy ache right away or diarrhea right away, that is your body saying, I do not like this and I do not like it a lot. But a lot of times you don't get that. And so it's kind of harder to find the things that are driving inflammation on the lower levels. And if you do get diarrhea or tummy cramps for certain food triggers, and you're like, well, that's okay, I'm just going to get diarrhea today, just kind of keep in mind that it's more than just diarrhea. It has a cascade of different effects over time, especially. Every now and then, for sure, everybody needs to have, something now and then, but if you're eating dairy every day, for example, and you get diarrhea every day, you're doing really long-term damage. The microbiome is so linked to different metabolic, autoimmune, neurodegenerative disorders. So again, making sure you're giving yourself as much diversity, and that's in the food that you eat. And if you eat more processed food and more refined foods and more sugar-led foods, you're really fueling the more pathogenic things that thrive on that sugar. They'll basically eat it up before the good bacteria can get it. And so candida will thrive, or parasites will thrive, or those opportunistic pathogenic bacteria will thrive. And then how that gut so influences the brain. There's a really good book. It's written by Dr. Tom O'Brien. It's called You Can Fix Your Brain. And it talks about how the gut, too, can have a really big impact on your brain for so many different reasons, but not just for your memory and brain fog, but for your quality of sleep and your amount of energy and so much more. And then how your gut influences your hormone balance. That's, again, something that we don't really think about. I do hormone optimization at my clinic as well. And I always like to preface with, if you do hormones, do the deeper dive, because otherwise you're just kind of pumping water out of a sinking ship. So we can give you hormones, but if your gut's not regulating hormones, you're not doing yourself any favors in the long run. And then for the immune function too, if those bacteria are diverse and are thriving, then they're going to nip anything in the bud. So if you do drink water out of the creek and you happen to get a parasite, your good bacteria should be strong enough to be nope, and just flush it right out. So having that to protect you in the long run is super beneficial. That's it. Thank you. Q&A. Anybody has any questions? Yes, sir.
On the hormone imbalance, you mentioned estrogen. What about testosterone?
Yes, testosterone is also regulated a lot by the gut too, and it can be either stacked or released. most gut issues that are long-term will ultimately suppress your body from making more testosterone. So for men, testosterone, it's kind of interesting. You know, you produce testosterone when you're young and you're healthy and you're thriving and everything's good. But ultimately, like if you have regular belly issues or you're not eating very good, your body doesn't prioritize production anymore. So you just kind of fall. And so most men don't have a problem with too much testosterone, whereas women will have a problem with too much estrogen. So if you can find anybody that naturally makes too much testosterone and feels bad from it, let me know. It usually makes you feel amazing. But estrogen, on the other hand, when you think about people who take hormones at the gym and they roid rage, a lot of that is because you convert testosterone into estrogen, and estrogen makes you a raging you-know-what. So too much estrogen is more problematic than too much testosterone in the long run.
Well, now, if a woman has a hysterectomy, she's going to lose her testosterone. I mean, her estrogen production.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that would be managed by the supplementation afterwards.
Yep. So total hysterectomy is where you take out the ovaries and the uterus, and the ovaries are your main hormone producers. Both men and women make DHEA from your adrenal glands, which you turn into testosterone, which you turn into estrogen. And so even when they're postmenopausal women should still have estrogen from your adrenal glands, but a lot of times women don't, because you kind of reprioritize that to save as DHEA or testosterone as a fight or flight response. So chronic stress will kind of make you save more testosterone, because very primitively, when we're stressed out, testosterone helps us in a stressful situation because we need to fight or flight. But what was your question? I got distracted.
Well, you sort of answered.
Okay. Yeah, so if you supplement estrogen and or testosterone, but you're not eliminating it, you're going to have a lot more side effects from that and a lot more problems from it. And I mean, estrogen makes you moody and irritable and bloated and not nice. It can make you not, super moody. Got a hairpin trigger. But just the right amount of estrogen feels amazing. So that's what we aim for.
What tests do you do to determine if you have that dysbiosis, candida, and all of that?
That's a great question.
Yes.
There's a test that I order regularly. It's called a GIFX, and it's covered by Medicare 100%, which is awesome. You get to collect your poo for 3 days in a row, and we're looking at your digestive enzymes. We're looking at inflammatory markers. We're looking at the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, parasites, candida, etc. It's really comprehensive. And then if anything does grow out, the test does a culture of it. So it'll say, okay, if you've got this candida, you can kill it with these natural agents or these prescriptive agents. So it's really very dialed in test.
Is this a blood prick one?
This is the stool test.
Oh, the stool test.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you collect for 3 days.
Okay.
And so for parasites, the purpose of a 3-day collection is for try to catch a parasite, because parasites are slippery little suckers.
Sure.
And the 1-day collections miss them frequently. So try to get it over a 3-day period to catch anything that we might catch.
I don't remember what serotonin is.
Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that makes you feel happy. And so antidepressants basically will capture more serotonin in your brain. So it doesn't help you make any more or less serotonin, but it just kind of keeps it available to you a little bit longer. So that the neurotransmitter is like, if you think about your neurons, there's a space between your neurons, and that's how every electrical connection in your brain thinks, and messages transport through these neurons. There's a little gap in between those neurons, and serotonin transfers from one to the other. And sometimes you don't have enough that's being released, and sometimes you just don't have enough. And so when it's in this space, that's where you feel happy. So an antidepressant will kind of put blocks on either end and allow more to be available to you, essentially. But as you can see, if you fuel your bacteria, I mean, and depression comes from a lot of different things. I'm not saying to get off your antidepressants because you can eat more plants, but that is a really big piece to the puzzle. And so like things are going to work better, treatments are going to work better if you address that underlying cause that's kind of like fueling that fire in the first place. Yeah, and dopamine is the one that makes you, like when you run a race and you finish, you get a huge dopamine rush because you're like, wow, I feel amazing. That's dopamine. So the serotonin is just more happiness, and dopamine is the woohoo, I feel great.
What about supplementing with serotonin?
Yeah, you can't directly supplement with serotonin, but you can give the bacteria those building blocks. So serotonin is built from vitamin B6, B9, and B12, and tryptophan, which tryptophan is an amino acid that you get in a lot of meats. So you could take tryptophan as a supplement and a B complex as a supplement and give your body the building blocks. That's a tool that I use frequently for people who are kind of resistant or not wanting to be on antidepressants. And you can take it as needed. You don't need to take it every day forever and ever. You just kind of, you know, when you kind of dip in your moods a little bit.
So we should eat meat.
Eat gummy bears.
Yeah.
Turkey, that Thanksgiving home that we get from turkey.
That's right. Serotonin is converted into melatonin as soon as the lights go out. So in theory, the happier you are, the better you sleep. But tryptophan is the building block to kind of get you to melatonin, which is a huge recovery hormone. So as soon as the lights go out and you rest, digest, and heal, melatonin is responsible for a lot of that rest, digest, and healing. Helps with bone regrowth and repair of all the damage you did during the day. So it's important to have enough serotonin so you have enough melatonin.
About a year and a half, 2 years ago, Susan and I both, we had tried a new cereal. Yeah, I think it was General Mills, but it was Cheerios with a whole bunch of other crap, you know, coating it and other stuff thrown in there. And we both started getting diarrhea, but in the beginning you don't associate it necessarily with any one particular thing because there's a million variables.
Right.
But since it was both of us, we were going, what do we have in common here? And eventually we just stopped eating it, and it went away. And I've never had much food allergies. I'm just curious, if somebody like a big concern like General Mills, do they actually test for, you know, if they're coming out with a new cereal, do they, you know, do clinical trials and to see if people are allergic to this stuff?
No. So
Yeah.
the FDA has a rule. It's called generally recognized as safe. And so General Mills can pay a research scientist a lot of money to be like, test my chemicals and say they're good. And that guy's going to be like, yes, they're good. Thank you. I'll keep getting paid.
You can buy anything you want.
Yeah, exactly. There's no problem. So there's a loophole. That's the generally recognized as safe loophole.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't even go look at the, you know, all the ingredients because probably if they're in small doses, it may not even be on the package. But like I said, I don't know if it was particular kind of fructose that might have been in there or.
You never know, and there's so many additives in cereals, and it's fortified with so many different things to be healthy that it's hard to tell what exactly could have been the thing. But my rule of thumb is like, if you can't pronounce the ingredients, then you don't need to put it in your body, because you're like, well, maybe a little bit in the Cheerios isn't bad, but then you're also eating a Pop-Tart a little bit later, and you're going out to lunch, and then you're. You know, we get it in so many different avenues that it's like, okay, a little bit safe, a little bit safe, a little bit safe, but it all fills your bucket at the end of the day. And so just kind of paying attention to ingredients is important.
Isn't there a certain amount of food dyes in this kind of a cereal also?
Usually, yeah.
In red or?
Yeah, usually.
I don't know if that would contribute to problems.
Yeah, I did, gosh, it's almost been 2 years ago. I did a presentation on the food additives and seed oils, which kind of talks about the buildup of all of that. But yeah, food coloring crosses the blood-brain barrier and can cause a lot of like changes to your cognitively, and mostly little kids are the most susceptible. questions.
What kind of seed oils are not good?
In general, we only need about 2 to 5% of our diet to come from seed oils. But it's in 90% of all the processed food in the grocery stores. So we just have an overabundance of it. But vegetable oil is no good for you. Soy oil is no good for you. Corn oil is no good for you. Those are kind of the big and heavy hitters. And we get inundated with them.
Sunflower oil?
Sunflower oil and safflower are considered the seed oils.
Oh.
They're the better options of the seed oils, you know, but yeah, we need just very little bit of seed oils. And they do help those polyunsaturated fatty acids that is a seed oil essentially create the lining of all of our cells. So we need them. We can't completely eliminate them. And it's easy to be like, okay, seed oils are bad, but then butter and tallow are good, and they are, but you have to burn that energy. And if you don't burn the energy that they give you, you're going to stack it as fat or as it's cholesterol in your blood vessels. So you can use them 100% for energy, and they help your body create energy. But usually we eat, like traditional Americans, we eat too much of everything, so we build it up and we don't use it all. So it can become problematic still.
Avocado and olive oil is good.
Yep. Those are the best to have the most of. Yeah.
And how about tests that tell you about your inflammation from foods?
Yeah, we can test for food sensitivities. The one that I do checks for 88 different types of foods. It'll tell you if you're allergic or have one of 3 different sensitivities, and one of those sensitivities is causing a 10,000-fold inflammatory response. So we look for the really big, bad triggers. And those are tend to be the things that cause a lot of your symptoms that you might be coming in to present with. You can also do, Medicare also pays for a really cool functional test that we can check your micronutrients and all of these fatty acids for you. So you could see, you know, how the oxidative stress from the food that you're eating on your body, and kind of the cascade of how your body's able to now create energy from the food based off of how much inflammation you have. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can dig into.
Some of these things that Medicare cover, can insurance companies still be, if you've got like a Medicare Advantage plan or something, can they still be sticky about it?
Yeah, traditional Medicare will cover the most, but the Medicare Advantage plans don't cover these functional tests.
Yeah.
They may cover the food sensitivity test. We can run that benefit, but only traditional Medicare pays for anything else.
Gotcha.
And they don't even cover all of it, but they cover more than most insurance plans. Yeah, insurance is kind of a necessary evil. I do a big Quest lab workup for my patients, and when I send it to Quest and they don't have the insurance information, they'll send a $4,000 bill to the patient, and I can order the same exact test through a cash price through Quest for $199. So because you have insurance, they're gonna bill the bejesus out of your insurance for it, which is pretty criminal, but yeah, pretty crazy. $4,000 versus $200.
That happened to me.
Yeah,
I got a $4,000 bill, but then they paid everything.
they paid it all. Yeah, they
paid it
do.
all.
But yeah, that's why the cost of healthcare is so
It's just getting
expensive.
it in the mail.
Right.
Talking
Giving
about
you a heart
stress.
attack.
Actually, do patients pay for those things upfront and then they get reimbursed with insurance?
You can do that. Medicare will pay for these up front.
Okay.
So they'll cover them up front for you. But if you have like, I don't know, United Healthcare and you pay for the test, then you could submit that to your insurance and pray to the insurance gods that they reimburse you. That's a hassle, but.
United Healthcare is a bad example.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people here have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they're just for what I do, they're a really bad payer. They'll only cover your in-network providers, and they're very exclusive. They don't want to do anything that's more integrative at all. It's a shame.
Just out of curiosity, how did you end up in Westcliff from Colorado Springs
Yeah.
with this business?
I started this business after we moved here. When I was in Colorado Springs, I felt like I was working too much, and I wasn't, I wanted to know where my food's coming from. I wanted to know my community. I wanted to kind of be a part of something bigger because I'm a part of something smaller. So I took a telehealth job when we moved out here because I'm like, I'm just going to not see anybody and be by myself and work from home. And I hated it, really. It was terrible. So kind of seeing a need for this in the community, I took this telehealth job doing what I hate, and I don't know why I thought it was going to be so successful, but kind of opened the door for me to open this practice here because there is definitely a need in the community for the education component of it, and then supporting the clinic as much as I can too because they're so busy. So I don't replace primary care at all. I'm just kind of an add-on to let's look behind the scenes, between the lines. Let's talk more in depth about what you're putting in your body and around your body, and really kind of a support system to the primary care. Try to offload some of those cases that they need more time. But yeah, we came to the Blue Cross Festival, and then we bought land here like 2 months later. Which I think is a similar story for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's what music does for you.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. But we love it here. And this community's been just awesome. Really supportive.
I mean, talking about the cooperation, and you said you're not replacing primary care, is there actually some kind of cooperation between the clinic and the clinic providers and you, where you're like, you should really see somebody? Or
It's
they
getting
say-
there. Yeah, it's getting there more. So I started my business by myself, and so I did everything just independently. And then in November of last year is when I got busy enough to need a bigger location and staff to support me. So one of those staff members is Lori. She is a really phenomenal health coach, and she helps people to rewire their thought processes that drive, again, one of the things that fill your bucket, right? When you're like, she calls it living in box one, which is like you're on repeat of just crap, bad thoughts, bad lifestyle, bad everything, and you live in box one, and that turns into disease as well. So she really helps people to rewire their brains. But lucky for me, she's a corporate head lady in charge. She's ran massive businesses, and so she's helping me to make those connections with the clinic. So we have, because we've kind of like, I send people to the clinic and they send people to me, but we've never like, okay, let's sit down and talk this out so we're both good. But that's in the works as we speak. So we can have a collaborative approach, because ultimately people win when, I'm not here to fight anybody.
So your initial $199 blood work, what all do you?
I check blood counts, electrolytes, organ function, vitamins, your B vitamins, your vitamin D, insulin, inflammatory markers, full iron panel, your full sex hormones, your adrenal hormones, your full thyroid hormones, cholesterol. And that's kind of where I start with like kind of looking at those endocrine systems. Yeah, full thyroid. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of work through food, gut, toxins. We could do genetics, which is really cool. There's like 80 different genes that we can test for how you're metabolizing genetically and the things that you're going to be more prone to. Like you could be more genetically prone towards memory decline. And so, but you can 100% influence that with your lifestyle by kind of fixing those things. So it's pretty cool stuff to see. The micronutrient analysis, there's a lot of different things that you can look at. But that initial panel, yeah, try to cover a lot. Awesome. Great questions, everybody. Appreciate you all coming and supporting the Wellness Council. And again, You have something to say?
Our next, meeting is next Tuesday, because just the way the timing worked out. And Ashley and Michelle are going to be doing